Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story is about a workplace perk that turned into a quiet scam, one parking spot, one favor, and a coworker who pushed his luck way too far. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I thought I was just teaching a selfish coworker a lesson about parking. Turns out I helped uncover a major fraud against the company. So my company let you choose between two options when you get employed here. Either you take the option to have all your public transport reimbursed, or you got a parking spot in the underground building. Last week, one of my coworkers asked me if he can take my spot for today morning. Told him I'll be back in office at 10 a.m. and I need my spot at this time for the day, having a meeting. He told me not to worry. Cue today at 10 a.m., nobody in sight. He don't answer my calls, so I wait till 10:20, still nobody, so I park as close as I can behind him and leave it here already late for my meeting. He started to call me at 3 p.m. to leave. 5 hours after the time I told him I needed my space, so I told him I'm in a meeting and can't move. He started to spam me at 3:30 to get my car out of the way. I was taking a coffee break with another coworker and let him know I still was in meeting. At 5 p.m., 2 hours ago, after 12 missed calls from him, a coworker told me he had to leave the building and called a taxi, LOL. Leave at 5:10 p.m. and let the building management that someone is in my spot since this morning. We'll see tomorrow how it goes. Take my time, I'll take yours. Update today, 11 a.m. So this morning came to work at 7 a.m. and surprised the coworker's car was still there. I parked again in front, but this time not as closer as yesterday. My first meeting started at 8 a.m., still nothing. At 8:30, management building tried to start calling me, but I'm in the middle of my meeting, so I can't answer. They call me 4 times in a row. Around 8:45, management building show up in my meeting room with my boss. I have to end my call, urgent matter. Turn out my car is blocking the big butt SUV of a boss from another department who want to leave the building. 3 people stuck in the parking till before 8 a.m. I explained the coworker's car's in my spot till yesterday and I have nowhere to park. Street parking are 16 euros an hour, so no way I parked there, and it's hot as F right now in Europe. Boss called coworker, no answer. Around 9 a.m., towing company show up and take his car. And from there, it take a sharp turn. Management called me at 10 a.m., 1 hour ago, to ask how many times my coworker did that. I answer it's the first time and ask what the problem is. Turn out it's the 4th complaint for this license plate, and management building found out coworker enter the underground parking lot nearly every day. We have to use a company badge to open the door. So I don't know what'll happen next for him, other than going to retrieve his car in the towing company lot, but seems like he's scamming the company for reimbursement of an annually public transport pass, about 1,000 euros. And what else? Still no sign of life from coworker, but boss and management building are fuming, LOL. We'll update if he ever show up. Update 2. Sorry for the late update, got lots of work. Coworker called me at 1 p.m. asking me where his car was. Told him it had been towed out of building and that I can explain what happened. Just come join the team at the lunching break room. He hung up on me and teleported in the lunchroom. We're at the 3rd floor from ground, so 4th floor from parking, and he was there in like 20 seconds. He opened the door and began screaming at me, telling me he had emails of me accepting, giving my spot for the day. Boss came by, alerted by the screaming, and took the 2 of us in his office. He asked for his version of the story, and again, my version. Asked for the email proof that said I had accepted for the day. Only had my email informing him that I'll need my spot back at 10 a.m. Boss asked where he was this morning, and coworker said he was with one of our clients. Boss called client to confirm, no confirmation on his end. Boss called HR, asked me to leave his office. We didn't hear what was told, but they stayed there for a good 45 minutes. HR lady made 2 back and forth from the printer room, and we saw coworker leave red-faced, not saying a word. Boss told us nothing about what happened, so maybe it's the last update since I'm going home now. Update 3. We'll update this afternoon. Boss and HR spoke to all of us today. For the people asking for an update, coworker wasn't here today and we had a meeting, but in the middle of the day created by the HR team. Basically, they told us from now we had access to the underground parking only if we hadn't taken the public transport reimbursement option, and proof of payment from our bank was necessary for the public transport reimbursement every month. Once HR had leave the meeting, we asked boss what happened with coworker, and turned out he faked paying for public transport for 3 years and had a lot of ghost meeting with fake client. He's under investigation for fraud, and I think they're putting pieces together to sue him. Was asked to make a formal complaint to HR. Don't know if I'll do it yet. Think have escalated very quickly and feel a bit bad for the guy. Don't want to throw him under the bus more than he already is. I get why you feel a bit guilty, but you really shouldn't. You didn't report him for fraud. HR discovered it on their own. All you did was protect your own time and parking spot. And someone's running fake meetings and stealing reimbursements for years, they were always going to get caught. It just happened to be on your parking spot schedule. And our next story. The $1 million lesson on why you should never, ever lend your car to anyone. 2 years ago, I made a choice that didn't seem like a choice at all. It felt like being a good friend, which is a simple act of kindness in a world that often seems to be lacking in it. Mark's 10-year-old sedan, which had a loyal heart but poor health, had been acting up for weeks. Then the last straw. The check engine light turned into a permanent accusing red light, and the car started to shake when it went over 40 miles per hour. One day my phone rang. It was Mark, and his voice was a familiar mix of stress and anger. I finally figured it out, he said quickly. It's the sensor for the mass airflow. The part's in stock at the store on Bentley Avenue, but they close in an hour. Is there any chance I could borrow your car? The math in my head was easy. A small problem for me and a big problem for him. Yeah, of course, I said, pushing away a vague, formless feeling of doubt. Keys are hanging on the hook. Be careful, though. I will. You saved my butt, OP. That choice, that 10-second conversation, seemed completely unimportant. It was a deal made in trust on a Tuesday afternoon. The world changed its axis 2 hours later. Mark called again. Before I even touched the screen to answer, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. His voice made it clear. It was tight and thin, and it didn't have its usual easy rhythm. It was the calm of being in complete white-knuckled control. Hey, he said, but then he stopped. The speaker made a shaky sound when they exhaled. I had an accident. The words were easy to understand. They had a physical effect. My stomach didn't just drop, it went away. There was an empty space under my ribs that had no air. Are you all right? I was able to get it out, but my voice sounded strange to me. He quickly said, I'm fine. But the words fell over each other. She's fine too. She got out of the car. It was just a fender bender. He started telling a shaky, broken story. He was getting onto the highway, and the ramp led into a lane that was busy but moving. Sunlight shone off the windshields in front of us. Then, for no clear reason, the brake lights on the car 2 cars ahead of him lit up in a violent way. The SUV right in front of him hit the brakes hard. Mark stood on his, and in a flash of pure adrenaline, his brain registered the distance getting smaller. There was a sickening, sudden jerk, the horrible sound of metal and plastic crumpling, and then nothing. My car had hit the back bumper of the middle car. There are no airbags, no spin, no screeching symphony of metal tearing. It was just a normal rear-end crash during rush hour, the kind that causes miles of traffic jams and makes people honk their horns 100 times because they can't see what's causing the delay. The police came, and their lights painted the asphalt in red and blue swirls. People wrote reports. Mark was calm, willing to help, and very sorry. He got a ticket for following too closely, which he accepted with a blank stare. The other driver, a woman in her 40s, looked fine on the outside. She got out of her car right away, holding her cell phone. She walked around, looked at the damage to her bumper, talked to the officer, and even laughed in disbelief for a short time while she was on the phone. The officer had asked her directly if she needed an ambulance or medical help. No, I'm fine, she said, waving her hand in a dismissive way. Just a little shaken up, you know. Mark drove my car home, and the front end had a dented bumper and a cracked grille that looked like a spider web. It was a sad visual apology. I thought that was it. The insurance machine worked with its usual bureaucratic whir. My premium went up a little bit, which was annoying, but not too much. The event faded into a story about a dinner party. The time my friend who drives perfectly got into a fender bender. It was put away and taken care of. Then, last Saturday, the past blew up in the present like a legal grenade. The day had been a dull, lazy blur. I was lying on the couch, stuck between a nap and scrolling through my phone, when the knock came. It wasn't the happy rap of a neighbor or a quick thump of a delivery driver. There were 3 quick, measured, and authoritative knocks on the front door. Rat-tat-tat, a sound that went straight to the primal nervous system without going through the ear. I opened up the door to a man in plain clothes with a thin, legal-sized envelope. He looked blank and professional. He asked, "Are you," my full legal name, not as a question, but to make sure. "Yes." "You've been served." He gave the envelope more space. I took it, even though my fingers were numb. He didn't say anything else and turned around to walk back to a car parked on the curb. I stood still in my own doorway, feeling like the papers in my hand were too heavy. I only knew the word served from movies and crime dramas, but it echoed in the quiet hallway. I carried the envelope to my kitchen table like it was full of poison. I sat down and cut it open with a butter knife, but my hands were shaking. The paper inside was crisp and tightly typed, and it had the scary words complaint and jury demand at the top. As I read, the room seemed to tilt. Someone was suing me for $1 million. Not Mark, me, by name, because my name was on the title of the car. The shaking got worse. I had to put the pages down, put my palms flat on the table, and take a deep breath. This wasn't just a nasty lawsuit. This was a terrible piece of fiction. The story that was made up in those pages had almost nothing to do with the accident I knew about on Tuesday afternoon. They said that Mark was drunk, impaired, and under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol. They said I knew or should have known that he was drunk and negligently entrusted my car to him anyway. They said that my car was defective, poorly maintained, and not safe to drive on public roads, which meant that a mechanical failure caused the accident. They said that the injuries included severe and permanent damage to soft tissue, traumatic brain injury, severe emotional distress, permanent mental anguish, loss of enjoyment of life's activities, and loss of future earnings potential. $1 million worth of pain, all because of a tap that didn't even set off the airbags. I felt like I was in a dream. This was a different world. In this version, I was the bad guy who gave a drunk person the keys to a car. Mark was a threat. The woman was a victim who'd been hurt. Everything was false. The police report, which I had a copy of, said there were no signs of impairment, no smell of alcohol, and no field sobriety test. It said that both drivers said they weren't hurt. I called Mark, and my voice sounded like it was breaking up. "What the hell is this?" A long, heavy silence. Finally, he whispered, "She's suing?" "Mark, she's not just suing. She's making up a story. People are saying you were drunk. Were you? About anything? Even a cold pill?" "No." The word was sharp and clear. "I was completely sober. You know I don't." That's all I was worried about, the car. "Did I have any reason, any sign that you shouldn't drive?" "Of course not. This is crazy." That was the main reason for the sickening anger. I would have hated it if she had really hurt herself, like with a herniated disc or whiplash that didn't show up until days later. That's what the law is for. That's what insurance is for. This, on the other hand, felt like a predatory lottery ticket, a shot in the dark fueled by the hope that fear would lead to a settlement. The timing was cruel on purpose. It was on a long weekend, so I would have to spend 72 hours imagining losing my home, my savings, and my future. That weekend was like a panic attack in slow motion. I didn't get any sleep. I hardly ate. It was like a torturous loop in my head. The knock on the door, the process server's figure, and the $1 million number flashing like a neon sign. I played the moment when Mark asked for the keys over and over again, each time with a different, smarter version of myself saying no. I felt a deep, corrosive stupidity. My kindness had set a trap, and I'd walked right into it. There was anger, hot and bright, but it was covered by a thicker blanket of fear and guilt. By Monday morning, I was a ghost. I called my insurance company as soon as their lines opened, my voice shaking as I gave them my policy number. Linda was the name of the woman who listened. Her voice was calm, like a rock in the middle of the chaos. "Okay," she said after I finished my hurried summary. "Take a deep breath. This is hard, but it's exactly what you pay us to do. This is why you need insurance." I didn't believe her. This was too big, too personal. She took her time and showed me how to do it. At the time my policy was in effect, the accident was talked about. There was already a claim on file. The coverage limits, which were in the hundreds of thousands, were more than enough for this. "We'll get you a defense lawyer for free. They'll take care of all communication. They will look into each and every one of these claims. You are not writing a check for $1 million yourself. These are just statements and a pleading. They are not proof. They are not true. But they say I knew. And we will protect you from that, she said, her voice getting stronger. People make all sorts of claims to prove responsibility. Most of it falls apart when you look into it. Your friend didn't get a DUI. The police report says there was no impairment. This is a common strategy. After I hung up, the first wave of all-consuming fear went away, leaving behind a shaky, tired relief. There was a keeper for the monster, but the peace was broken for good. I've learned the hard permanent lesson. I will never lend my car to anyone again, not to my closest friend or even my own brother. It has nothing to do with trust and everything to do with being exposed to too much danger. That simple act of friendship opened the door to a legal nightmare I never knew existed. But this is the part that insurance can't fix, the part that stays behind. I would take responsibility for my part if this person were really, obviously hurt. I would feel bad for them. I would want my insurance to pay for everything she needs. Instead, I got a file full of lies that tried to make me look like a criminally negligent and morally bankrupt person. Not only did they sue my insurance, but they also tried to ruin my reputation to get to it. I have to deal with the stress, the worry, and the feeling of being violated. Insurance takes care of the money, but it doesn't change the fact that anyone can try to make up a story for a payday in our system, and you could be at the center of it just for being nice. The only thing that makes me feel better is that I didn't make a mistake out of fear. I didn't get in touch with the other person. I didn't go on a rant on social media. I gave the grenade to the people who knew how to safely get rid of it. Police report says no impairment, no injuries, no ambulance, yet suddenly it's TBI, permanent trauma, and negligent entrustment? They waited just long enough to maximize stress and uncertainty. I don't blame OP for never lending a car again. It's not about trust, it's about liability. Lending a car feels casual, but legally it's a massive exposure. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.